Welcome to Corporate Cafecito, a podcast based on professional development, career growth, and respecting our cultural identity. Hi everybody, bienvenidos a otra edición de Corporate Cafecito. Yo soy Nayeli Suárez Gas.
Y yo soy Carlos Butler Vale.
And today we are going to talk about something that maybe growing up we didn't know too much about, but given Carlos's expertise, which we are going to fully exploit and make sure we get all of it and recorded so that we could all benefit from it, we're talking about internships.
It's a fascinating topic, I think, and one that I wish I probably would have had a little bit more guidance on as I was going through my own sort of journey. So I'm really excited about it. Let's go.
We're recording this in the winter, and it'll probably be released early January. When should people be looking for internships?
Yesterday. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because for the most part, and it really just depends. So most companies are either right now finalizing their budgeting for the next year, which gives me a little bit of hesitation just even saying that. And so they may not even necessarily know all of the internships that they have. But for the most part, what I've also found is they start recruiting basically this summer. So they decide on what internships they're going to be doing in the summer, and then they recruit for them in the fall so that you can start the following summer during break.
Where do they recruit? How do they recruit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I would answer two ways. The old school way is to physically be on campus and to sit at a table and allow folks to come to you. What I've also seen more recently, which I think is a really good thing to talk about with our listeners, is they're using a lot of professional organizations. Like the Alphas and the Asas and the Perspanicas to set up tables at their career booths because they know that they're going to immediately connect with the types of folks that they're going to be looking for, and it reduces the cost too.
I was mesmerized, fascinated. I was talking to a client of mine the other day, and they said they went on campus and they were giving out job offers right then and there. And I never knew that happened.
It's become such a competitive space. Back when I was at Groupon, we used to go to what's called the Grace Hopper Conference for Women in Technology. And it was so competitive. Companies wanted to leave with a certain number of job offers and interviews that they had already done by the time that they were there. The reason why is because that's how they maximize the value of the time that they spend there. So depending on the school or the organization, they would have access to, say, your resumes beforehand, and they would even potentially set up phone screens in advance. And then once they're there physically, they're there to meet you and engage and ask you any follow-up questions. And again, if it's a company that's got their stuff together, they already pretty much know that they're going to have a certain number of positions that they're going to be able to offer. And they want you to walk out with an offer because if you've got one, then you're less likely to go and get one from another company. And conversely, it's good for the participants because
you're leaving there with a job.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, for the listeners, you could potentially walk away with more than one offer. And that was one thing that I didn't realize growing up. And so this is where, obviously, and this through your coaching, work, this is where you have now a little bit of negotiation ability that comes into play. And so it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. This is why I tell people all the time, join professional organizations, go to their events. And then the last thing I would say is that I've noticed as a trend is AI is being used a lot. And so you're seeing less folks go on campus and more of using AI technology or places like LinkedIn to identify talent beforehand. They do all of the work in advance. You might even just have a virtual interview, and then basically all of that stuff is done. And a lot of that changed after COVID. So in some cases, some folks were doing internships 100% remotely.
Oh, that's so weird.
And never met anyone before they even started, and physically met anyone before they started. So I would say those are definitely the big things to be looking out for.
Yeah, no, I love professional organizations. I remember I was the only girl in the economics club at UIC. And this was in the 90s. But I also joined the American Marketing Association and a couple other ones. Back then, there weren't very many Latina ones. Are there, so you mentioned a couple.
Yeah.
You mentioned for Latins, it's like Alpha, Los
Hispanica,
Panica.
I would say ASA is another really great one. They all range in different size, and some of them do twice yearly, some of them do once a year, and they do really big events. In some cases, they offer scholarships for people to go to these, massive, once a year summits where they have the best of the best companies out there. And if not, I would encourage anybody to save up some money because it's going to be money well spent.
Right.
If you can make it, it'll be an opportunity, or even try to figure out if you can get a sponsor. But you brought up something that I think is really smart. So, my nephew's in college right now. And one of the things that he said to me was that he was going to join the AMA, the American Marketing Association chapter, which I wasn't in marketing
Yeah, I
growing up in
wasn't a
school, so
marketer
I
either.
didn't know that that was even a possibility. But I thought it was so smart because even professional organizations like that are now going out and recruiting people for specific fields. And a lot of those programs have like diversity recruitment,
Oh,
you know,
goals.
goals,
Yeah.
or you know, they certainly know that they want to attract more of that talent because particularly Hispanic Latinos, they want people there to make marketing decisions that can bring that perspective. And so don't just necessarily, I would say, limit yourself to the Hispanic focused organizations, but what are some very industry specific organizations that you could
Yes.
join that are going to be going out there trying to find diverse talent.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think, leveraging our diversity is really important. I love that there's some areas now where we're not the first and only.
Hmm.
And I was talking to a client recently and I was just like, well, because you knocked down that door, now the person who comes behind you doesn't have to worry about
Yeah,
being the Latina that takes this
absolutely.
role.
And it makes a huge difference. I
Hmm.
mean, we talked in one of the previous episodes about, what it means to be on the inside when you're supporting those diversity recruitment programs. And I will tell you, being a Latino and seeing that type of program gave me a different vantage point to know exactly, how to approach, what are the needs, opportunities, what are the
Yes.
concerns that are top of mind for people. I was a first generation college student, and so it gave me a really good window into understanding what folks either probably knew or didn't know, and then I could act by helping to fill in those gaps. And so it's just such a cool kind of
Transition.
roundabout
Yeah.
transition. Yeah.
I'm filling out my son is filling out high school
Oh my
applications,
gosh.
and on there it said, "Will you be a first generation college student?" And I was like, "No, he will not."
How did that feel?
It felt really
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah, I bet.
It was cool because I remember feeling so lost and
Yeah.
dumb navigating that, and not knowing how to do a FAFSA, not knowing how to
Oh yeah.
apply for colleges, not knowing which colleges to apply for. And I went to UIC here because they sent me a letter saying we got your ACT scores, and if you come to UIC, we'll give you a scholarship.
That's awesome.
Had it not been for that letter, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
I
And
didn't have anything planned.
And you went to Lane Tech,
Yeah.
right? And so like already there was probably like some really good support that was going in there. But one of the things we talked about is like so many opportunities to fill in those
Yeah,
gaps
we never talked about
still.
college
Yeah.
really, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it's evolved a lot more. And maybe they
Sure.
were talking about it when I was cutting class, but
You never. Who were you doing some entrepreneur on? You were doing something
no,
enterprising.
you know what? I really liked cutting class. It was really fun because my dad was so strict.
Oh,
So the only time I could do fun things with my friends was if I
during
cut
school
class.
hours?
Yeah. Um, but yeah, it was so interesting. But I think that, thinking about like that first generation in, and
Yeah.
I think if it's happening to me, it's probably happening to a lot of us
Yeah.
where our children will no longer be first generation to
Yeah.
college. And I wouldn't even know now how to get my son's internships.
Well, but
And I say that because I feel like our Caucasian counterparts are really good about getting their kids into internships.
they've been networking for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I don't mean, no, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, they've been they've been making their friends since middle school. They've been connecting, they've been networking. They know who's the head of what company. They know who's on the board of this organization. I mean, I've seen it. And I know that you probably have clients that, have seen it, or, heck, if they've been able to benefit from it, then even better.
Yeah.
But, the reality is there is absolutely this sort of networking component, and it kind of becomes sort of a, a circular thing,
A
right?
Nepo baby
Yeah.
situation.
Well, but and at the same time, I always say, if not you, then who?
Right.
And so, hopefully, if anything, one of the things that we can try to inspire people to do is to take advantage of those very same things.
Right.
Who are your network, right? Like, who are your people? You want to help get, your nephew or your son an internship into United Airlines. Get to work on it. You want to, get somebody at, Molson Coors, get to work on it,
Right.
right? There is power in that network, and sometimes as Latinos, we're just grateful, and we don't necessarily feel like we want to, and we're always like, oh, I don't want to impose. I don't want to
Yes.
impose.
Yes.
Pero como sabemos, el que no habla no come.
Yeah.
Entonces,
I always tell people, I'm like, I will tell you if I cannot help you.
yeah,
But until then, keep asking me.
I love that.
And I will try.
You hear that?
Yeah.
And it's not just
Yeah,
you.
no, you're right.
I would rather someone say to me, someone reached out to me a few days ago and said, hey, can you meet with a friend of mine just to talk about career prospects and, provide whatever, provide guidance? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I said, yes. Now, if I can't, then I'll say, I really appreciate you thinking
Yeah.
of me.
I can't right now.
I can't, but, somebody else can. And so I would just encourage folks, to start thinking about those things. And for any of the listeners that are thinking about their internships, and I don't want to skip over the fact that neither one of us
Had
an
internships.
internship.
No,
And so, because I
none
think
of us
that's a
had
whole
it.
nother thing.
Yeah.
But
Why didn't you have an internship?
I didn't know.
Me either.
I didn't know, and it probably wasn't that the school wasn't saying about it, but I got to be honest with you, I didn't fully understand the value of it. I grew up in a working family, and my parents didn't know about internships. They certainly probably wouldn't have been okay with me taking an unpaid internship, because they've always sort of said to me, you need to work.
Right.
And so the other thing for me was I felt like I couldn't leave my job to go do an internship. But that was short-term thinking. And I think we talked about
Yeah.
that a little bit, right? Like, how much of a difference could it have made if I stepped away for 3 months to do an internship and potentially get my foot in the door in a
With a
really
big
amazing
company.
company?
Yeah.
And so, what about you?
No internships. I was always working, and during the summer, I worked usually 2 jobs, and so I would work. My uncle was amazing, and he would give any of us jobs, and so I was at a taqueria as a cashier and waitress during the day, and then I would go do customer service for a LaSalle bank at night.
Wow.
So LaSalle was from like I want to say 3:30 to midnight or 4 to midnight. And then I would go to La Taqueria, Los Comales from 7 a.m. to like 2:30, 3
My
o'clock. And
gosh.
then I would just drive down the 290 and get to the other job because I
Wow.
wanted to save money to go to Europe.
Oh.
And so I couldn't take an unpaid internship.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how to get an internship. Like
Yeah.
we weren't all talking about our summer internships when we were hanging out.
Yep.
We were talking about like what we got to pay,
Yeah.
how we're going to get our tuition,
Yeah.
and things like that. Where do you even find the internships?
Well, and so to your point, I mean, I think that is such a challenge these days. It's gotten a little better. You talked about the evolution of things, and I think most schools now, most universities now are actually talking about that proactively, which is great, and they're helping people with resume formatting and things like that. We now have AI that can actually help with that as well, which is amazing. There's so many different AI tools, and which brings me to kind of your question about like where to find some of these things. So you could actually leverage AI, something like ChatGPT, to be able to like help you identify companies
Huh.
with internship programs. You could be specific and say, I want a summer internship program. I want a summer internship program in marketing, and they can do that. It's not always the most up to date information, just because there's a little bit of
It
a
could be a good
lag.
guide.
But it's a good guide, yeah. And then I would say to anybody, LinkedIn is the place to go. Everything's on
Yes,
LinkedIn.
everything's on LinkedIn.
Everything's on LinkedIn, and it's easy for companies to do that. And what I love about that is you can learn about those companies. Almost everything you need to know about those companies is on LinkedIn. Not that we're doing a commercial for LinkedIn, but like,
Yeah.
but if you see it
Also,
on
if
there,
you see our names on there, go ahead and link
yeah,
into us.
absolutely. Please do follow Corporate
Mhm.
Cafecito, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But you can learn about the company culture. You can learn about different roles that exist. If for those that have like premium subscription, you can even see like what's been the trajectory
Yeah.
of bringing in new roles and learn about the industry. So I think I honestly think that would be my first place to go to. We used to always like our biggest sources used to be Indeed as well. And then the other thing I would say is most of those professional organizations or the alphas, the asas, they have what they call job scrapes, and so there are these bots essentially that link into the talent management system for these
Oh,
companies
wow.
and automatically pull all of the latest information on roles that are available. Um, and I would say going back to timing, because I
Hmm.
think that is really critical, always look.
Yeah.
Always look. And the last thing I'll say is you can set, what I think is really cool is that you can set email subscriptions for internships. So
Huh.
let's say, for example, I'm McDonald's and I'm interested in a job at McDonald's. I can go into their talent management system, and if I don't see an internship right there, I can actually set up a notification so that when anything that has a keyword internship or anything else like that, it'll email me immediately.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know that
I
growing
didn't know
up.
that
And
either.
so you could do that with
I
most of these
actually just learned
companies.
that right now.
Yep. Most of these companies, like particularly if they're like Workday or Taleo or things like that, you can set up automatic reminders, and so you don't even have to do
You
the
don't have to stay on top of it and look
yeah,
for it
the
and keep.
searching,
Yeah.
right? The search component of it. Yeah, that makes it so much easier. So
It is so much easier.
yeah,
And internships, they just set you up,
they do.
right? They give you the experience. They know you're there for a project. I remember I had interns when I was at Molson Coors, well, when I was Miller Coors. And my intern, he was this bright eyed, big smiled Latino, and I just absolutely loved him. I still mentor him. But I was like, I am like, what if whatever you want this to be, I'm gonna help you make it.
Awesome.
And surprisingly, I gave him a job offer and he didn't take it.
Why though? Actually,
He
I
wanted
was
to
not
follow.
expecting that
I
ending.
know
I was not expecting that ending.
he had a dream. He had a
Wow.
dream, and he wanted to be in streetwear. And he was printing his things, and then he also wanted to work for Tesla, and he works for Tesla now.
That's amazing. There's a really good lesson there too.
Yeah,
Like that there's a whole lot to unpack there. But I one of the things that I think is important, the fact that you know that he works at Tesla is indicative of I think the next important element of this, which is your network. Because the one of the biggest things aside from real world experience and being able to sit in rooms just to listen,
yeah,
is important, but the networks that you build could be forever.
yeah.
And these could be the very same people where, they could offer you the job, or maybe later on you decide that you want to go somewhere else and you want to come back, or they're the ones that are writing your letters of recommendations. And so I would say, if anything, like that is such a vital component of these
It
internship
is. And I
things.
still cheer for him. I
That's
cheer for
awesome.
him all the time. I'm
That's
like,
really good.
let's go.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that you had the opportunity to be that mentor for somebody too.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny? I don't know if you met him because when I did the Drop Needle launch party at Robert's West Side,
Yeah.
he was there. He came.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he came to support me.
Wait, I think actually right before I left, I may have met somebody that was there. So, is he working on Tesla like out in what is
I
it? I
can't
don't know if
remember
they're
one suburb.
in
Yeah.
okay. Oh, but he's local.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
It is
That's
really cool.
awesome.
So I'm like, you know what? He was in my life forever, and he was my intern.
That's great.
He was my intern in 2012.
I still keep up with
No,
some of the
I'm lying.
interns.
No, yeah, 2012.
That's
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's 14 years ago.
12.
Wait, 2012.
Carlos is not a math major.
Wait, no. You said 2012, right?
Yeah, 2024.
It's 2024. 12 years. Oh my gosh. I am not a math major. That's exactly right. I don't know why I keep thinking it's 2026. We're not even at 2025. Oh my gosh.
So.
Well, no, I think I actually do have that you said something that I think is important. I have taken on all of my interns as mentees.
Yeah.
Because to me, it doesn't stop at the internship. And there's something really just satisfying and fulfilling. And by the way, the other side of that is you don't have to be BFFs with everybody. Like once you go through an internship process, like you're there for a specific purpose. And so get from it what you need.
Yeah.
And if it's not a lifelong connection, that's fine
okay.
too,
Yeah.
because the learnings are lifelong for sure.
100%.
And so yeah, listen, it is a competitive space. And so what I will say to anybody, whether you're helping someone through the process or you're going through it yourself, apply early,
Yes.
apply often, put your best foot forward, leverage all of the resources that you have to really take whatever it is, even if it's just volunteering or let's say you worked a part-time job at your local Jimmy John's or whatever that might be, figure out a way to be able to leverage that to highlight your skill set, understanding that it may not be super robust, but give yourself that opportunity more than anything to showcase that you're there
Yeah.
for the experience and that you want to take full advantage of it. But really, if you follow those things, I think, and you're really open-minded, to me, it's a win-win recipe.
Yeah. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
We are focused on our growth, on our professional development. Internships is kind of that beginning. It's that first exposure into corporate America. And for those of you who are hiring managers, make sure that you're findable. I don't know if findable is a word, but making sure that people can find you, reach you, etc. Because the benefits for our community, getting that foot in the door, not only is good for that first generation, but it's good for all the generations behind them.
Yeah, and I would say there's a really great business case too. With more and more Latinos, just with the Latino population continuing to grow, with the buying power of Latinos continuing to increase, you want to do everything you can to ensure that those perspectives are represented. And when you think about just like Gen Z, for example, or even Gen Alpha, these are going to be the next set of buyers.
Yeah.
They're going to be the next set of consumers. And so as a person who may oversee these programs, you want to make sure that you're getting these perspectives
Right.
As early as you can.
And that they feel like part of your brand.
Absolutely. And that they can contribute, because that's a big part of the reason why they're there. You're going to get something from it, and they're going to get something from it too.
Yeah. Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and stay tuned next week when we'll be back with another episode.